Alright, so good morning. So today I'm going to go over how I installed the glass and the weather stripping for the doors on my 1967 Austin Healey Sprite. There is a process that I strongly recommend that you go through. You know, this might not be perfect for you, but it will at least give you a starting point. If you just go and start doing the install, you're going to probably find that you need to kind of take some things off you just put on because you lost access to certain points of the weather stripping, or the glass won't go in because something else has been installed that needs to be loose, and we'll talk all about that. The driver's side door is done. All the seals and everything have been put in, and what I'm going to do is we'll go over to the passenger side and we'll use that as the example. Now, on the passenger side, it is complete, but I haven't put the door card on, and actually this back plate, leave that off. I installed it, but leave it off because you're going to need access to all of the various openings in the frame. So let's get started here. I did all this work with the door installed. If you're going to do it that way, I strongly recommend that you put your door strap in, because this door will open fully without the door strap, and you can crease the A-pillar with the front edge of the door. You'll see it on some Healeys and Sprites where the door strap is broken, and over time people have opened the door and damaged that A-post. So definitely you want to restrict this door from opening completely, and once you do that, you can feel confident that you're not going to have an accident and do some damage, especially if you just have it painted. I installed the door handles and the door locks and all of the mechanisms here, and actually got the door to work fine, put the striker plate on and everything here, and found that I could do all that without having to worry about that interfering with the rest of the install. So you can, in my mind, you can do all that. I put all that in and it didn't get in the way. The first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to install this inside window track. It goes up along here, it bolts in down here, 2 bolts and a bolt here. Now this bolts under the armrest, so we'll talk about the armrest or the arm pad in a minute, but you want to make sure that you get this track installed, because if this is, once this is installed, and this is not an easy thing to necessarily get in, to complete, and then find out you have to take this back off in order to get the bolt in here because you didn't remember that. We'll talk about that in a minute. So definitely get this track in, bolted here and here. There wasn't much adjustment or anything to it, so I just tightened that down. I didn't have a problem with that after the rest of it was installed. And then you're going to install your vent window here. Now, so the vent window basically has a long stem that slides down into the car. There's some 2 barrel nuts that attach to some bolted stems that come down. The barrel nuts look like this. Just a long nut. There's a lock washer and there's a washer that goes on, and then these go up in through here and screw on to the bolts that come down through. You want to leave those off. You can put those on at a later time. There's also 2 bolts up in here. You leave those off, and then there's 2 bolts down here that go to a bracket. All of these things attach to this window vent frame, and the bracket down here looks like this. Essentially, this portion attaches to the vent frame, and then this is the bolts attached to the door. So you can attach this part, because if you wait to do this part of it until after everything's done, it's kind of difficult to get this in there. So you can put this on. You can put it on finger tight, and then you can tighten it up afterwards, but definitely want that in here. It's got kind of a capture to it. but leave these 2 bolts out so that this vent frame has the ability to move. Now this one's obviously secured, but you want to make sure when you install your glass, you're going to need this vent to swing forward. So it can't be attached securely, otherwise you can't get the glass in, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So we got the vent frame in. You want to make sure that you get your seal in your vent frame. This rubber seal here, it's actually goes all the way around. Otherwise, you're going to have to take it off and do it again. Make sure that's in there. Okay. So once that's in and not attached, the next thing that you're going to look to do is install your armrest or your arm pad. This is just an aluminum strip with a vinyl covering on it, and on the inside edge of this strip there's a slot, and there's 5 clips that go in there, and they bolt into the door. The clips look like this. The clips look like this. It basically slides into a slot and then slides down. There's 5 of them. And the original design was a nut and lock washer like you see here. But I recommend you go to the hardware store and get yourself some 3/8 nuts with these captured star washers on it. That way you have one piece to install, not a lock washer and a nut. It will make that install a lot easier. So that's the recommendation there. When you put these star washers on, you have to get your hands up into the door, into the various slots up here. Okay, here, and then, like I said, behind this back plate. I guess I should have taken this off. There's openings here. You can get your hands up in there. It's tight. What I found was I would take a piece of yellow tape, so it had, rolled it onto itself, and then stuck the nut to my finger, and then was able to get it up in there, and then kind of rolled it on to catch a thread, and then put the tape off, and then basically was able to get my fingers up there and get all of them hand tight, and then use a 3/8 box wrench to tighten them up, make sure that the pad is sitting properly up here, and then tighten it down. Okay, so now this is installed and it's secure. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to install your window register. And the window register attaches here, 4 bolts, and there's a pivot point on the register that attaches here, 4 bolts. The register will fold into itself, kind of like a scissor type of thing, and then you can slip it in through this slot, and then work it up, attach it here finger tight. But I would leave these off so that that pivot point and that whole bracket would lay low. The reason that I want that to lay low is because when the window and everything is installed, before you put your weather stripping on, it's nice to have that window sitting as low as possible. It doesn't even, we'll talk about that in a minute, so that you had full access to getting the clips and things on for the weather seals. So we have our register now installed and kind of laying there, not attached here. The next step is to install the glass. What I will say though, and I'll add this in because I don't know how many people actually still have these on the doors. In these doors originally, down in here, they put on what's called I guess it's a window stop. It looks like this. Okay, and this sits down inside there, mounts to the bottom edge of the door. And it basically is a felt pad that the bracket, the window register kind of sits on when you roll the window down. For the most part, these brackets rusted out. Water would get in there and the pad would get all crappy and just disintegrate. These brackets you can't get anymore. I actually made this bracket from remnants of what was left in a bunch of doors. I kind of got an idea of what the pattern looked like, and I made these because I just wanted them on. I know that I've heard most people don't think they're needed, and so they just won't even replace them. I wanted to replace it, but if you have this intact in your door, you might want to consider taking it out, because what it does is then it allows this register to lay as low as possible, and you can always put this in afterwards once everything is put back together. So that's up to you what you want to do there. And like I said, these are usually rusted out and not even existent in a lot of cars. So register's in and it's laying low. Okay, so the next step is to put the glass in. This vinyl tears very easily. I put a couple layers of yellow tape on here because when you go to put your glass down in, right, this weather stripping's not installed yet, you still have to take it down to a fairly narrow slot, and the track has some sharp edges on it, and you can definitely catch this and tear it and or scratch it. But you're going to take your vent window and you're going to angle it forward. That's why we're not attaching it. We're going to angle it forward, and we're going to take the glass down at an angle like this to engage the first pin on the register. Now the register, we just said, was laying down low here, so you're going to take your window crank and you're going to crank the window up, and you want to get your hand into the door slot here, and just, this doesn't have to be attached. You can raise the window register with your hand, just kind of get everything moving up, get that track up almost where it would be full height or fully extended to the window. So now your track is somewhere up in here, and you have a pin here and you have a pin here, 2 pins on the register that have a little spring motion to them. You're going to take your window down and you're going to engage this first pin. You just got to depress it with your fingers because that pin won't engage into the track unless you depress the track against the spring and expose more of the pin. Once you get that track in, you're going to drop the window down a little bit further, get it, take that little more of that angle out of there. And in the middle of the track on the window, there's a slot, a second slot, well, a slot, and that will go down, and you'll have to work the second pin into that slot area as you're working the window from an angle to a more level position, right? So it's kind of like sliding in that way, okay? And then, again, you have to depress the spring in order to get that pin to engage, and then once that's in, and the 2 pins are now in the track of the window, you crank the window back down slowly, carefully holding onto the glass and cranking this slowly. Just drop the window down all the way down as low as it'll go, and that will give you access now to finish your weather stripping. So don't worry about attaching these 4 bolts just yet. I mean, you could, I guess, if you wanted to, but it makes, the lower this whole mechanism, window mechanism is, the easier it is to do this part, which is, the next nightmare that you got to look at. So let's talk about this weather strip. There's an external weather strip, and then there's what I call there's a felt or a furry strip here on the inside. This one attaches to the outside edge of the door frame. This one attaches to the inside with a series of clips, and we'll talk about the clips and how I did this. This is a nightmare. I cannot explain it any other way. Okay, this external strip goes from the edge of the door here, and it actually extends onto the initial portion of the chrome vent frame, okay? One of the strips I had, and I think it was the other side, this portion of it wasn't even trimmed. I'm sorry, it wasn't even trimmed. I had to cut it. So but you could, if you turned the strip over, you could see the outline of it, because I guess when they molded it, they never trimmed here, so the strip just would look like this, and then you had to kind of notch it out. Let me see, you can see this one. Well, this one was the same way. So here's my example piece, and you can see, kind of crappy, but I kind of notched it there. This was a piece I didn't use. But this is the strip, and you'll see on the back side, there's 7 indentations or markings, and this is where these clips go. Okay, and the clip looks like this. So the clip has
two different sides to it. One side has like two claws, two teeth to it, and then the other side has a bevel. Okay. The way that this clip goes on is like this. So the two claw pieces engage in the metal of the door, and this bevel piece engages in these indentations. Okay, so it's a little hard for me to explain it any other way, but this was the best way that I found. Now, I don't actually know, I'm not going to say that this is, some people might say, well, maybe it's this way, but I found that this way was the best way to do it, where these two claw portions of the clip engaged in the metal of the door frame, and this portion here engaged in the weather strip. Okay? Now, there's 7 of these. It's very fiddly, and you're going to need the recommended tool. You can buy this either from Moss, or I made this. Just a clip. Now, let me just take the tape off here. I used the tape as a way of temporarily securing the clip, which I found worked really well, especially when you're trying to move this tool down in between the door and the clip hits something and then it falls off. So there's the tool. Kind of rough, kind of crude, but it did the trick. You can buy this from Moss already pre-made and a little nicer looking than this, but it did work. And you're going to put that clip in there, and then you're going to slide the tool down and engage the clip between the seal and the door. Some of these you could get, I started in the middle and was able to get my hand in there to push up with my fingers and get one started, and that kind of held the strip tighter to the door. But in some cases I actually was able to tape a clippy. Don't think I have one laying here somewhere. Maybe down in here. Hang on. There was a little clip. Yeah. I used this to clip in between where the clips get mounted. I would put a clip to hold this strip from here to here, just to keep it up against the door. It just made it easier to use the tool and get the clip onto the seal and then the door. Again, there's 7 of them that go up here, and it's going to take some time, but it can be done, and that's the way that I positioned it with the clip and the tool. So once that's on, okay, you have your external strip on there. Again, the window's still down, laying down. You're going to attach your inner strip, this felt strip in here. And this strip, I don't have an example of it because I just don't, what was in here was all rotted and it isn't worth showing you. It has a metal support structure underneath it. The clip that they sell to put that one on is a clip that looks like this. I personally don't know how you install this. It's just, it's too, I don't know, it's too restrictive. I take it once you get it on, it will never come off. But what I did some research and found some suggestions, and here's what I recommend is, and this is what I used, and it worked very well. I got these from Woolies, is a company based out of the UK. They sell clips and weather seal. Great place, great service. They sell a clip like this. I think these are used on other British cars like Jaguars and for similar type applications. But this clip has a small secondary clip on it. Hopefully you can see that. Okay. So this portion, this little clip, is what the metal felt strip goes into. And then this portion of it slips onto the metal door frame. And you can see the convenience of that versus something like that where you have to get the metal felt strip and the door frame in between that. Now, I used this, and this worked really well, and I didn't see that it compromised the seal at all, and it held very well. I didn't have any issues with it pulling out or disengaging. And you can see on here that the door seal here is where it needs to be. It's a little bit recessed down in here, and it sits very tightly. There's, I think, 6 clips on this one here. So that's what I did. That's what I used. And again, you got to use the tool, the little hook tool, to insert those as well. But you get a little bit more access being on this side versus that side. You get your hands up there and get things started, and then finish it with the tool. Excuse me, the tool. Okay. So you have this on, that on. You have your pads on. Now you can start finishing things up. So you can take your window, you can roll your window up, bring it up, and then again, these are not attached yet here, but you can use your hand to get the window up, and then as you're going up, you can find a spot where that pivot point bracket lines up, and it isn't. These are not square. It's a little bit off. So you have to turn the bracket to find the right side to get these to line up. It's not that difficult. Once those are in, I would finger tighten these, and then roll the window up fully and make sure that it's sitting in the track here properly, and everything is seated here, and everything looks good, kind of without any real tightening process. Just get it to where it's all sitting nice, and then go in and tighten your window register, winding mech here, and then this pivot point. Okay? Then once that's done, you can come in, put your barrel nuts on. Definitely consider getting these set up finger tight first, because I found aligning these to the wing was a little difficult, and you don't want to strip these. So try to get those in first, and then swing your bracket up from the inside here. You can reach in, swing that bracket up that I showed you earlier. Put your 2 bolts in here, finger tight. Put your 2 barrel nuts on with your lock washers and your washer, and then you can, and then also here, tighten this up. This is just like I said, just a support for the wing stem that comes in. You can tighten everything up here and secure this with the window up, and make sure the track is, the window's fully engaged in the track. So now that's all done. And then tighten these up, tighten those up, and you basically have all the steps needed to put all of it in. It definitely is not easy. It's probably one of the more difficult things I've ever done in this car, including all the engine and the wiring work. It's amazing how difficult it is, and I can imagine what this would have been like for back in the 60s, where everything was manual labor. There were no robots doing this stuff, so someone was in there putting those clips on, and I'm sure they were very good at it. But for someone who hasn't had this car together for 40 years, it probably took me over a month and a half to get a single door done, given time. So hopefully this will help you, and I appreciate it, and take care.